Issued by the Walter Russell Foundation, Swannanoa, Waynesboro, Virginia. Universal Law, Natural Science and Philosophy by Walter Russell, SCO. Lesson Number 13. The Walter Russell Foundation, Swannanoa, Waynesboro, Virginia. Copyrighted 1951 by Walter and Lau Russell. Prelude. Life itself is a transcendent adventure. At its best it is tremendously difficult degrees. It is a huge mountain of unknown height whose top is hidden in an impenetrable veil which every man must climb. From that upward journey of life there is no escape for anyone, and no man knows what he must face on that lifelong climb up its tortuous paths of blazed and unmarked paths which man must tread in light or darkened. In the dark oft lose his way and pitch headlong into stark tragedy which may be any man's the very next moment after happiness and glory will seem to have been forever attained. There are wonderful green meadows and forested paths on every man's mountain degrees. There are babbling brooks and springs to quench one's thirst, and fruit-laden trees and luscious gardens, and there is music of the singing of birds in the forests, and laughter and joy and grief and death next door. And just beyond where a bride is lifted across her happy threshold, a blind man gropes in the dark, and a once proud scholar meets misery face to face and knows not what to do with it. 2p9. Universal Law, Natural Science and Philosophy, page 210. Knows not what to do with it. Therein lies the tragedy of life. The pitiful fact equals you know not what to do with it. There is death in the dark, and the fear and dread of death in the dark for him who knows not eternal life, for him who knows not that there is no death, and he who fears and dreads death in the dark knows not what to do with his fears of death in the dark. You must face the unforeseen on your mountain. You must face dangers, for its paths are not all smooth. You must surmount its steep cliffs and lose your way in the dark. You must face failure as well as success, loneliness and frustration, lack of husband, home, children, love, or loss of them in death or tragedy, or from your own weakness or from treachery of trusted friends, and know what to do with it. Yes, that is the tragedy in not knowing. Man on his mountain of life, not knowing his mountain, not knowing what to do when the wall of the mountain faces him, not knowing how to surmount it, having no compass to guide him, no light of knowing out there in the dark of not knowing. Woman on the mountain degrees, terribly alone, frustrated and alone, not knowing what to do with it. Boy on his mountain, homeless, penniless, helpless, for he knows not what to do with it. But I know a man who has not been able to move for 30 years, blind, paralyzed, speech and hearing alone left to him, yet radiantly happy, successful, known, loved and honored, paying his way and giving much to the world, for he knows what to do with it. Universal Law, Natural Science and Philosophy, page 211. I know hundreds of men and women who have faced insurmountable hurdles and know what to do with them. I have faced many of them myself and knew exactly what to do with them, and doubtless you have also. Why such despair? Why such misery? Why fear anything in all this glorious universe of God's making, and your making, where naught but life is, where you know that you are existent as you in all creating things and cannot be alone, nor unhappy, nor defeated, nor in any way stopped from your joyful climb up your mountain of life to the light of knowing which will illumine your path all of its glorious way, if you but know what to do with life as you meet it ever in the light, in which there is no dark. Balance in this divided universe. Knowledge alone will help us meet our problems squarely and turn those which are seemingly not good into good, or those which seemingly hurt us into helpful ones which glorify us. Everything which happens to us is good. Knowledge of God's balanced universe will tell us that if all of our ills arise from unbalance, and God's universe cannot be unbalanced, then we can balance our ills with that knowledge. Until we do balance them, they are but experiences which are our lessons in life. Until we do balance them, we must treat them as but stepping stones across the stream of life. Let us get down to fundamentals. Why do you or I have problems? Why does anything happen to universal law? Natural Science and Philosophy, page 212_you or me. Why do we go to sleep, wake up, go to work, breathe, talk, eat, think, dress ourselves, catch colds, have pains, aches of the body, from ills of the body, aches of the heart, from loneliness, or from something some friend said about us, or something we did to hurt a friend? Why does the wind blow east now, west tomorrow, or blow at all? Why the Gulf Stream or the Antarctic current or polar ice cap or jungle heat? Why do I live and die and am joyful or awful? Why am I here at all? What is it all about? Degrees, everything changing, always changing. Why? 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 I will tell you in a very few words, and amplify them in the following postulates and axioms. So the answer lies in the Divine Trinity, which y0u are degrees. It lies in your knowledge of the balanced relations between the one which y0u are, and the divided to which your body iso, and it lies in your ability to manifest those relations in balance with each other. Degrees, postulates. 1 degree, your mind belongs to the undivided and unchanging universe of still magnetic light of all-knowing. 20 the undivided is one, the one centering cause of the divided. 2 degrees, 30 your mind is y0. A lot happens, or can happen to y0. 40 y0 you center your thinking. Your thinking extends from y0u, but your thinking is not y0. 50 your thinking is divided and changing. Degrees, anything can happen to your thinking because your thinking is divided. And universal law. Natural Science and Philosophy, page 213 changing, but y0 you control your thinking. You can balance it and be joyous, or unbalance it and be miserable. You can make wise decisions and grow strong, or unwise ones and make failure for yourself. You can steal for your greedy self and be shut away from men, or you can give of your loving self and be honored of men. Your thinking is under your control. Your thinking expresses your desires. You are what you think. You make yourself into the image of your desire. You can be whatever you desire to be. What you now are is the product of your thinking. Likewise, what the world is today is the product of world thinking. Man has always had control over his thinking. He has had free will to do as he chose. The world will be wonderful and beautiful, and people in it will be happy, peaceful and prosperous when the world chooses to think beauty, love and the brotherhood of man. Until then the world will be as chaotic as world thinking is chaotic. The world could transform itself overnight if it could but transform its thinking overnight. Likewise, you could transform yourself overnight by balancing your thinking. G6. Your body is a record of your thinking. Therefore your body is divided and changing. Anything can happen to your body because your body is divided and changing. It is borning and dying. It is integrating and disintegrating. It is subjected to every effect arising from interchange between all other divided and changing bodies in the universe. Remember also that your body is an extension of y0u. It manifests you through your thinking, but it is not y0u. Universal law. Natural Science and Philosophy, page 214. Control it as one unit of creation, but it is subject to all other units of creation, and all effects of motion everywhere. For any body anywhere is an extension of every body everywhere. Degrees. If your thinking produces a perfect body and a tragedy of your environment mangles your body leaving it hopelessly crippled, then you will know what to do about it if you control your body. Degrees. Otherwise it will control you and make you forget your divinity. Degrees. It will make you a purely physical thing whining through life from self-pity, driving love from your door and making you poor indeed. Degrees. If, however, you can knowingly say I and my Father are one, nothing can happen to your body which you cannot balance and thus live gloriously in the light which Y0 U Area 7. You are not a purely physical thing. 0 Your body is not Y0 it is but a complex state of motion. Degrees. Y0 You are the one spiritual being. Degrees. Nothing has happened to Y0 Nothing can happen to Y0 Axioms. Lo, the undivided light of knowing is cause. Degrees. The divided light waves of thinking idea into thought bodies is effect. 20 Every effect in this universe, every happening, every event and every experience takes place P_211_ between divided bodies which are oppositely conditioned. Degrees. 30 All effects are manifested by two-way interchange of motion between oppositely conditioned, divided and unbalanced bodies. So Universal Law, Natural Science and Philosophy, page 215. 40 Every thought which extends from mind has a body, a divided body formed and patterned in the image of the thought. 50 Whether or not the thinker gives his thought a visible, material body, the thought itself is embodied in him. The moment he thinks the thought, it has a patterned body which is instantly a part of his own body. No man can think invisible thoughts. Every thought of every man is a created thought body which fashions the patterned form of the visible man. Invisible thoughts of beauty become visible in the body of the thinker. A man who thinks music looks like his thoughts. Likewise a cynic, brute, pessimist, sensualist or kindly bishop look like their I11.111. Their invisible thoughts are visible in their bodies. All thoughts, emotions, events, experiences and happenings of every nature in your life, and of everything in all creation, have bodies. Nature is concerned only in the making of divided, changing bodies to record the divided and changing thoughts which created those bodies. You, as an individual, are concerned only with the making of divided, changing thought bodies in your image. That is all you ever do. 9 The thoughts and thought bodies you create are first a part of Y0 your body. If you _x_/t read those thoughts in other bodies, those other bodies are extensions of your body. They are your creations. 100 Your creations are universal. Your thoughts are univer_sal T112. Are universally extended. Ever/thought to which you Universal Law, Natural Science and Philosophy, page 216. Gly body is extended to every other body in the universe and becomes a part of it. It is a art of me, and of your neighbor, of the Zulu, the Ognini in his jungle, of the mountain, yea, of the violet in the meadow or of the farthermost star. The radio can prove that for you. 11. You cannot have a thought which is your own alone. You cannot divide the universe for yourself. You cannot have anything for yourself which you have not first given. That which you is the image of what you have been. 12. If your thought is out of balance, your body is out of balance in the measure of your unbalanced thought. Likewise the whole universe is out of balance in the measure of Law's thought. You cannot unbalance God's universe. The whole universe moves to adjust itself to your unbalanced thought. A child moves the Pleiades and all the stars of heaven with his slightest movement. 13. You cannot have an unbalanced thought. nor perform an unbalanced action without the measure of that unbalanced thought and action returning to you in its own time. God gives you the right of free will to think any thought or perform any action, but He holds the got to balance your unbalance by an equal reaction. 1k. In the making of thought bodies to manifest our knowing in the patterns of our desires, we have what we call good experiences which make us happy, or we have bad experiences which make us unhappy. Our good experiences arise from our knowledge of how to produce balanced thought bodies. Conversely, our bad experiences stem from our ignorance of balance in us and how to extend balance from us in our thinking. Universal Law, Natural Science and Philosophy, age 217. Conclusion: as it is our sole purpose and occupation in life to create divided and balanced thought bodies in order to have good experiences and happy lives, we will take another simple step in the unfolding of God's plan and explain fully how God seemingly divides the unconditioned universal equilibrium into pairs of opposite conditions in order to create the wave of motion from which thought bodies are constructed. Degrees. We will give many simple examples and diagrams of familiar effects so that you will recognize the fact that you produce thought bodies in exactly the same way that God produces them, the only difference being that God keeps His creating body in balance but man rarely does. Degrees. During my illumination, God commanded that I write down the one supreme law of balance for cosmic man. I herewith give it to you as He gave it to me for you, and as written in the divine Iliad. God's law of balance. Great art is QMLP. My universe is great art, for it is simple. Degrees. Great art is balanced. Degrees. My universe is consummate art, for it is balanced. Simplicity. Degrees. Me/universe is one in which many things have majestic me's U2e, and again another many have measure too fine for sensing, yet I have not one law for mastic thin 5s, and another law for things which are beyond the sensing. Degrees. I have but one law for all my opposed pairs of creating things. And that law needs but one word to split out, so hear me when I say that the one word of one law is balance. Universe. Law. Common Natural Science and Philosophy, page 218. Registered meal. And if man needs two words to aid him in his knowing of the workings of that law, these two words are balanced interchange. Degrees. If man still needs or words to aid his knowing of my one law, give to him another one, and let those three words be rhythmic balanced interchange. No messenger of the light has, as yet, given this law to man, for man has not yet been able to comprehend it. If he had been to comprehend it, and practice it, he would have built a balanced civilization instead of a chaotic one. Degrees. To the extent that you understand it, you will build a balanced life of happiness and masterly achievement, because you will be working knowingly with God when you do fully comprehend and practice the law of balance. Degrees. No matter what happens to your own little universe, you will know what to do with the rhythmic balanced interchange between every pair of opposite conditions in this divided thought wave. Universe is the inviolate 11 watts which must be obeyed. Man in 1 to 221. Nature persistently violates it, and nature instantly pays the price of its violation in its storms, tornadoes, crashing avalanche, and tragedy of stellar cataclysms. Man persistently violates it and pays the price of his violation in his crashing business failures, enmities, unhappiness and illness. Degrees. All the tornadoes of Earth cannot affect the balance of Earth, for balance in the universe cannot be upset. Degrees. The Earth continues. Universal Law, Natural Science and Philosophy, page 219. In its balanced relation to all planets with such exactness that its position, in relation to them, can be determined at any time to the split second. If the Earth disobeyed this law by the slightest variance, its oceans would sweep its continents clear of all living and growing things. Degrees. Neither can your disobedience to that law affect your balance in respect to the universe, for God balances every unbalanced action of yours with an equal and opposite reaction until you do balance it as you someday must. Degrees. But as God said in his message to you, all men will come to me in due time, but theirs is the agony of awaiting. That agony is the price you would be paying for your own disobedience to that law, and the disobedience may not be willful but due entirely to ignorance of the way God builds divided thought bodies. Degrees. I quote God's message to man in this respect, as written in the divine Iliad: when man knoweth me in him, then am I he. And again I quote, I, the One, am not divided into two as pairs of opposites of me. I divide the two extensions of am thinking, but I am not thinking, nor am I. 2 Degrees. When man thinketh man alone, denying me in him, then is man's image man's, not mine and man's. For the pattern of my balanced rhythmic images within man may not be seen in him, nor may the glory of real light be seen in him or known by him. Degrees. Universal law, Natural Science and Philosophy, page 220. When man thinketh me, through knowing me, then is he patterned by my image and I am he. When man thinketh me in him, then is man's balance absolute. Degrees. When man so thinketh, then hath he all power that I, thy Father forelother of all creation hath on. Universal law, Natural Science and Philosophy by Walter Russell, S.C., do lesson number 14. The Walter Russell Foundation, Swannanoa, Waynesboro, Virginia. Copyrighted 1951 by Walter and Lau Russell. Once again I must talk to you as simply as though you were small children, for any thinking which is new must be presented simply. I want to tell you how bodies are made and balanced with all other bodies, how God makes them and you make them, but if I just tell you that all bodies are electric wave vibrations packed close together to make solids and spread farther and farther apart to make liquids and gases, I will be stating a truth, but you will not know specifically what I know. You will but get a general, vague idea of it unless I tell you the way you teach your children to read by starting in with lettered blocks. Vague general understanding is not sufficient. You must know specifically how bodies are made and kept in balance, and their every other function kept in balance, for mankind is ever walking a tightrope and depending absolutely upon his balancing extensions. And it is so easy to crash by loss of balance. The trouble with life is that all of us are continually losing our balance in hundreds of little things which almost pass unnoticed, but it is their sum total which gauges both our safety and our progress. 221 Universal law, Natural Science and Philosophy, page 222. You must know specifically how bodies are made and balanced by equators and God's watchful eyes and the magnetic poles of all bodies, whether they be uncreated thought bodies or physically created material bodies, because that is all you are doing all of your life. What you are and what you create depends upon what you know. Ignorance never gets you far. Mankind knows less about creating bodies and balancing them, the life principle, self-energizing or self-vitalizing, than any other subject. Man knows how to use the energy for his machines expressed by falling waters, but has very little knowledge of how to use the energy of the universal heartbeat to vitalize and balance his own body, and the bodies he is forever creating with his thinking. You make bodies because you desire to create them. You make them out of light, electricity, and motion directed by your will. You pattern them in your own image. The life you give them is your life, as their bodies are also your body. They are extensions of your body, as your 1 equals 1 is an extension of God's body. You made Y_L412 own body by your desire to extend it from God's body. God made your body with you the universal desire to manifest the man idea as art of God's one whole idea of creation. God could not create your body with you without desire to do so. Desire of mind is the motivative force which energizes all creation through the universal heartbeats of concentrative decentrative thought pulsations. Likewise, you cannot create bodies without the desire to do so. Your desire is your motivating force. Universal Law, Natural Science and Philosophy, page 223. All creating bodies are extensions of other creating bodies. You are now, and always have been, creating your own body. You cannot extend that which you have not first created, neither can you extend more than you have first created. All thought bodies extended from your thought body by the desire of your mind to create thought bodies manifest the measure of your knowing. Your thinking can never manifest more than you know, no matter how great is your desire. If you realize the fact that you are forever creating bodies by the use of electricity, energy, light and motion, and are balancing them with the immediate and universal environments, you must know what these tools are that you are using, and you must know them as thoroughly and as dynamically as you know how to multiply 2 by 2 and conclude, rightly, that the answer is 4. I have not used this simple analogy without a good reason. And that reason is that it is no more difficult for you to fully comprehend all of these essentials for the building of thought bodies than it is for you to multiply 2 by 2, for God's working principle is as simple as that degrees science should be as simple as God's one working principle is. But science is extremely complex because it is unaware of that one working (212_la as manifested in the Divine Trinity. I tell you all this because you are all afraid of science. I know that you are, because hundreds of you have told me so. Why are you afraid of it? Because of the tremendous complexity of the science you have read, a man-made complexity which has no relation to nature. That is the reason you are afraid of it. Universal Law, Natural Science and Philosophy, page 224. I do not blame you for being afraid of it degrees when the ordinary everyday layman reads about the electrons, protons, photons, neutrons, positrons and newly discovered particles in endless array, and when he is told of the 92 elements of matter and their complex structure, all of it couched in a terminology which is like Greek to him, and seems beyond his comprehension. I do not wonder that he shies from it, but I say to you that there is nothing so complex in the one field of science, whether in electrodynamics, chemistry, astronomy or any other branch of science, that any one of the intelligence required to be a good pianist, or composer, good housewife or good business executive could not as easily master. I also say to you that these many varieties of particles which frighten you away from science, are all of them the same particle of light corpuscle, which seem to be different because they are in different parts of their wave fields and are, therefore, differently conditioned as to their polarity. And so would you seem to be different kinds of humans if some cosmic giant photographed you under his microscope one day when you trudged in knee-deep snow with your fur coat, hat and mittens on, then later photographed you as a water animal with bathing trunks and sun hat. Chemistry is as simple as music. The octave tones, harmonies and rhythms are the same. I could teach you chemistry from the musical octave, or the color spectrum, as well as I could from the Mendeleev table, and I will say the same for mathematics or mechanics, when I have taken you behind the scenes where God's cosmic universal law, Natural Science and Philosophy, page 225. Cinema is being plated / you will find no complexity there at all. You will find that when you thoroughly know the working principle of the Divine Trinity, so thoroughly that your own consciousness is always the centering zero of knowing from which all pairs of opposite expressions extend, you will suddenly realize that you have all knowledge, for the answer to every question as to cause and principle is within you. When you have arrived at that point, you will find yourself to be a very different kind of a person. You will, from now on, find yourself more and more dependent upon yourself, more sure of yourself. You will find yourself talking less to dissipate your forming thought bodies, and thinking more. The time will gradually come when you would not think of asking any other person on earth for advice upon anything whatsoever which you are planning to achieve or create. You will find yourself going to books only for information, or to other men for technical skills, or to encyclopedic recordings which are not knowledge, but never for cause or principle, for that knowledge is already within you, and these lessons should awaken it in you sufficiently for you to recognize your own cosmic unity with the Omniscient. To know the greater your cosmic awareness, the greater your cosmic consciousness, which means all-knowing. So let us begin all over again at the beginning in our search for cosmic omniscience. Remember that we are in a thought-divided universe of thought-created bodies. And by bodies I mean sounds as well as Sun's universal law, natural science and philosophy, page 226. The east wind as well as the insect, the electron as well as the elephant, the violet as well as the human, the song of the bird as well as the bird, and the machine as well as the inventor of it. So you now know what I mean by bodies. Next, let us then remember that the thought-divided universe means the division of thinking into its two pulsations of motion between concentration and decentration. Next, let us never lose track of the fact that all of the IRS of opposites in all of this universe of effect are just other words for, or the mechanics of, concentration and decentration. In other words, concentration and decentration are the root words for all pairs of opposites, whether heat and cold, gravitation and radiation, or any other pair. Next, remember also that all physical effects are but the electrical records of these two mental effects. As a final thought in connection with what is now coming, let me again repeat the fact that all opposites of every pair are born out of each other as to simultaneously becomes the other sequentially. These are the thoughts we must now expand and clarify. As a first step, try to imagine God's mind thinking His one idea of the father-motherhood of creation. His knowing of that one idea is formless in the undivided light. To give it form He must divide the one equilibrium by extending it from its one balanced condition and give it two equally unbalanced conditions. As I have before stated, the universal equilibrium is zero and cannot be divided, but it can seem to be divided by establishing an equator between two conditions which, together, add up to zero. Universal law, natural science and philosophy, page 227, figure 17. Now imagine God's hands pulling the invisible or idea of father-motherhood apart to divide it into two visible forms, each of which are one half of the one idea. Instead of the invisible, formless and changeless one idea, God has thus created pairs of oppositely conditioned halves of many ideas. That is what is called polarity, which means the division of one condition into two equal opposites. See figure 17. I have used the male and female figure to symbolize the division of all things into pairs of opposite sex mates, but you must thoroughly understand that it is only a symbol. For every universal law, natural science and philosophy, page 228, creating thing, and even the uncreated thoughts of things, are divided into pairs of opposite sex mates. By this I mean minerals, metals, liquids, vapors and everything in matter and space. Remember always that this is a sex-electric universe, and all motion, everywhere, is sex interchange between opposite-sex mates. There you have it. The whole of creation consists of pairs of oppositely conditioned mates, sex mates, polarized halves of each other. Also you have the whole cause of balanced or unbalanced motion and a basic understanding of electricity. Let us consider each of these separately. We will first consider motion and what happens when motion is balanced or unbalanced. Before God polarized the one into pairs, there could not possibly be any motion whatsoever. In an equilibrium, motion is impossible. It must be divided and extended from a mutual equator before motion is possible. For example, consider yourself in a closed room of even temperature. There is no movement in it anywhere, for it is an equilibrium, and motion is impossible in an equilibrium. See Figure 18. If we put a bar of hot iron at one end and a cake of ice at the other end, we have upset that equilibrium. It now follows the principle of the Divine Trinity. The one condition has been divided into two opposite conditions. Universal law. Natural Science and Philosophy, page 229. The hot iron being a positive condition and the ice being the negative condition. See Figure 19. Instead of the entire room being in equilibrium, an equator has been developed between the divided two. These two opposite conditions immediately reach out for the other toward their mutual equator. They each desire the other to find balance through each other, as all unbalanced pairs of opposites continually do. That desire is sex desire for balance. Sex desire is electric and is manifested by an electric interchange of inward-outward, outward-inward pulsations, which we call an electric current. The electric current will continue until both conditions have been equalized. All motion will have then ceased and the room will be completely in equilibrium as before. It will be in the condition which we call dead in the storage battery. It will have lost its polarity, just as your self-starter loses it by becoming depolarized when its opposite conditions have been equalized. Now consider the separated father and mother conditions in Figure 17 in this light. The one has been pulled apart to create two. The two conditions are positive and negative, a compressed condition and an expanded one, which correspond with the concentration and decentration of the thought pulsations which caused them. Universal law, Natural Science and Philosophy, page 230. Now imagine that the pulling apart of the one into two caused a strain, or tension, as though there were many electric bands which held the two together as the invisible one. To pull them apart caused these bands to stretch against a resistance which pulled the other way. The effect of two-way tension is the answer to what electricity is. The two-way desire to equalize that tension is the answer to what sex is, and the two-way interchange which is necessary to erect that equalization is what motion is. For when that equalization takes place, electric current ceases, sex desire ceases, and motion ceases. Thinking divides the one balance and extends it. Electricity is the resultant effect which arises from division of balance and its extension to two balanced conditions. Without desire for creative expression through thinking, there could be no sex division. Without desire for balance, there could be no sex desire. Without attainment of balance, there could be no repetition. Without repetition, there could be no continuity. Your mind, which centers your body, is eternal and never changing. Your body, which extends from your mind, is eternally repetitive and forever changing. You always have a body as you always have a mind. Basis of all of life's problems. The previous lesson ended with God's law of balance for this new age of cosmic man. The answer to everything which is good or bad in your life lies in the measure in which you practice the law. Universal law, natural science and philosophy, page 231 of balance, and your ability to practice it lies in the measure of your understanding of that lay. Degrees. If you face a crashing defeat, you must know how to meet it. The best way to do this is to search within your consciousness to find how or where you have violated the law of balance and the principle of the Divine Trinity. Degrees. At such a time, never seek the solution outside of yourself by telling a living soul of your problem who is not able to take your problem as his own. Degrees. Your wife or husband may be the only one who is capable of becoming one with you in your problems, and that only if your mate is one with you in all things. Degrees. Seek the solution within yourself. Degrees. The answer is within yourself. Degrees. Seek aloneness with your own soul and talk to God about it. The more you know about His law of balance, the better you can comprehend God's universal language of light in which God talks to you. Degrees. Likewise, the more you dynamically know that principle as manifested in everything you do, the less problems you will have to overcome. Degrees. For that reason I shall talk to you at length concerning the principle and dramatize my teachings by human examples as to the application of that law to every phase of your life, from business to matrimony, from frustration to glorification, or from health to friendships. Degrees. God has given you something to guide your life actions which you probably never have given thought to. He has given you what is known as an equator. When applied to earth or sun. Degrees. As applied to you, it is a plane which divides your body into two equal and universal law, natural science and philosophy, page 232. Opposite halves, and each opposite half symmetrically balances the other half, but in reverse. It is as though your body were vertically cut in halves from head to foot, and an invisible mirror placed there, for each half to reflect the other half in reverse. If you do not thoroughly grasp my meaning, and look in the mirror, the equator which divides you is the still magnetic light which divides all things, but which, in itself, cannot be divided. Perhaps you will meditate upon this subject with me and ask of yourself what significance the equator of your body has upon your health, happiness, success, or other incidents of your life. There must be some vast significance to this one I act, because every creating unit of organic and inorganic matter is similarly divided, every insect, plant, corpuscle of animal, vegetable or mineral matter, and every star, sun of planet in the heavens. See figures 20 and 21. The vast significance of the equators of all creating things lies in universal law, natural science and philosophy, page 233. The fact that the equators are the dividing planes of the universal equilibrium. They, therefore, represent the undivided, the unchanging spiritual light from which the physical bodies of all things are extended. The zero, which is the center of gravity of all bodies, centers the equators of all material bodies. The light of your consciousness is on that portion of the equator of you which centers the two thought extensions of your brain. The real, immortal Y0U, the invisible Y0U, controls the visible body of Y0U from the equator of your body. Everything you are in thought extends two ways from your consciousness, which is located upon your equator. Your senses vibrate from that equator when your equator is out of balance with the universal equilibrium, and cease to vibrate when it is in balance with it. In the following chapters I will tell you much about the relation of your own particular equator which divides and controls your mental and physical lives, in order that you may see how God is working with you in the unfolding of your destiny every moment of your lives. Never forget that what you are doing in the divided visible universe is a manifestation of what you are thinking in the undivided invisible universe. Conclusion: you will have a different viewpoint on life when Zo1 thoroughly comprehend how helpless you are without knowing God as one universal law. Natural Science and Philosophy, page 234, figure 22. Life and death exemplified in the Divine Trinity with you, and how powerful you are when you do know Him in you. T3 is much to be said and explained, but for this lesson I will close by illustrating for you that equator of the Divine Trinity which we call life and death. See figure 22. Life and death are equal opposites. They are sexed mates, as all pairs of opposites are sexed mates. They interchange from the moment of birth, and that interchange is sex interchange. The purpose of that interchange is to seek balance with each other, which is the sole purpose of all sex interchange between all pairs of opposites. Universal Law, Natural Science and Philosophy, page 235. When life and death find balance, they lose it, as all pairs of opposites perpetually lose the balance they perpetually seek the moment that they find it. Life and death are born in the same cradle, but the cradle is a cycle, like the swinging of a pendulum, with an equator between the two from which life extends one way and death the other way degrees. Each inward breath you take is a rebirth toward life, each outward breath is a rebirth toward death. As life and death continually interchange, they approach each other until they meet at the halfway point, the equator of your life cycle. From there on, life is dying so that death may live, and death is living so that life may die. There is no death in God's universe. There is naught but perpetual rebirth into an endless repetition of rebirths degrees. Every opposite gives birth to its own opposite simultaneously and becomes its opposite sequentially. You will remember God's words as given in His message of the Divine Iliad. Know thou then that I alone live, I do not die, but out of me comes both seeming life and death degrees. Life is but the inward flow of a thinking's divided pulsing, and death is its outward flow. Know thou also that the divisions of thinking are but equal halves of one, for I again say that I am one, and that all things which come from me are one, divided to appear as the universal law. Natural Science and Philosophy by Walter Russell, S.C. D. Lesson number 15. The Walter Russell Foundation, Swannanoa, Waynesboro, Virginia. Copyrighted 1951 by Walter and Lau Russell. Man must know man. There are many things which are not yet known about your mind, your thinking and your body, which you should know degrees. You have to live in a creative world as co-creator of it, and the more you know of how you create bodies with your thinking as nature produces them, and the more you know about the principles which govern the creation of bodies, the more you can control, not only your oval body but your destiny. In the last lesson I told you of the equator which divides your physical body degrees. November I shall tell you of the equator which divides your thought bodies, in order that you may comprehend the principle which makes you an intensive thinker, and also how your intensive thinking energizes your body through the two equators which govern your mental and physical unfolding degrees. Everyone wishes to be a powerful thinker of great imagination and have a powerful, well-balanced, healthy body which grows stronger and more vital into his 70s instead of beginning to weaken in his 40s degrees. I wish to remind you that what I am telling you in the next 237 Law, Natural Science and Philosophy, page 238. Few lessons I have myself demonstrated, as I was commanded to do in my instructions. The most vital year of my physical life was my 72nd year. I grew more powerful of body until that year. My mental power is strongly on the increase and ever will be. Senility shall never touch me, and it should never touch any man who knows of his exact relation to his source both spiritually and physically. If you really want to know the priceless things I have been prepared to tell to you, you should be willing to make as great an effort to comprehend it as you did when studying your multiplication tables, for the greatest depths of science are as simple in principle as that. Those who might imagine the science approaches beyond their comprehension can be likened to those who desire to be composers of symphonies who are not willing to study the octaves, harmonies, and rhythms upon which compositions in music depend. Symphonies can never be written from abstract desire, for music is built upon structure. Everything in nature is built upon the same rhythmic balanced octave structure, so when you understand the principle as applied to one thing, you understand it for all things. Where is your source of energy? Another step in the unfolding of God's plan is to tell you how that mysterious thing called energy becomes yours to use, where it comes from and what it is. That is why I must talk to you for quite a while about equators which seemingly divide God's one unconditioned light into universal law, natural science and philosophy. Page 239. Pairs of oppositely conditioned light. I use the word seemingly, for the divided light seems to be to the incandescent light of suns and the cold dark light of space degrees. These lights are not two, hence they are not divided, but only seem to be, because they are either contracting or expanding, according to their direction of motion. To express motherhood or fatherhood degrees, every idea of mind is divided into its two oppositely conditioned expressions. Degrees each seem to be two but are but equal halves of the same thing. Degrees witness, for example, the male and female pairs of opposites of the man idea. Degrees the idea is one but its manifestation is two, always two. First the invisible idea, then the visible manifestation of that idea expressed in bodies of formed matter. Degrees idea is always expressed by the outward giving from a point of stillness in the direction of motherhood, followed by the inward regiving in the direction of fatherhood toward that same point. Degrees the outward giving is the unfolding of idea from the womb of suns and earths, and the inward regiving is the refolding of idea into form of the outward giving in every radial direction, from one 0 point, and its inevitable regiving to that same point is the basis of the radial three-dimensional universe of hot spheres of concentrated light surrounded by cold cubes of decentrated light. In other words, desire of the Creator to give outward from every point in his universal equilibrium acts like an outward explosion taking place everywhere. Degrees the reaction to the outward universal law, natural science and philosophy. Page 2K0 Explosion is an inward explosion which regives that which was given. Degrees desire to give and regive to manifest. Love is the basis of the universal heartbeat which seemingly divide the one into its two opposite expressions. So the equators which separate the physical and mental divisions of the universal equilibrium are what I want to talk to you about in their relation to energy. Degrees I have been saving this up for you until you had a better understanding of the divided and undivided universes which have been referred to by mystics for ages but have never been explained by any of them. Degrees if you read that glorious epic of the unknown deeply illumined mystic of several thousand years ago, called the Bhagavad Gita, you will find many references to it all through the book. Degrees he knew exactly what it meant but he could not tell it. Science has completely ignored the inspired revelations of these early mystics as illogical and possibly if science has ever given evidence that it even took note of it, the reaction to it was that it was illogical to consider that the undivided and indivisible could be divided. That is good reasoning, for the undivided cannot be divided. The magnetic light of the God mind is an equilibrium, and naturally could not be divided, but it can seem to be, and that seeming is the illusion that this physical universe of motion is, which I am gradually unfolding to you. Degrees later on I will explain to you the office and purposes of the light mirrors and lenses God makes use of to build his illusions. Universal Law, Natural Science and Philosophy, page 241. Of motion and wave fields which seem to divide his one light into the extensions of the Divine Trinity. But for the present imagine a mirror placed in a room which not only made two where there was but one, but made each one the reverse of the other. Degrees now I want to give you something to think about and deeply. If God is omnipotent, which means all power, or energy of the material universe, how can there be any power or energy in bodies of matter? If God created the universe of matter, it necessarily follows that the energy which created it is in the Creator, and not in his creations, just as the energy which is in your creations is in Y21 and not in the books you write nor in the buildings you build. An idea for deep thought. Science says that heat is energy. I want you to think this over to see how impossible and how illogical this conclusion is. Yet it is the very cornerstone of science from which the first law of thermodynamics arose, and from that first law came the second law of thermodynamics from which the expanding universe theory sprang. Neither of these laws have any validity whatsoever, even though they are the very foundation of science. Degrees heat is the sex mate of cold. Heat cannot express energy through motion unless it is surrounded by cold. Degrees heat is as a dead storage battery unless, and until, it has its cold mate to interchange with. When you breathe in you create heat. When you breathe out you create cold. Y0 you provided the energy to create these conditions. Exactly the same thing can be claimed for cold. For cold, Universal Law, Natural Science and Philosophy, page 242 cannot express energy unless, and until, it is near heat, yet science does not claim that cold is energy. Both cold and heat are mutually created conditions arising from the division of the universal equilibrium. Just as they mutually create each other, so, likewise, they mutually void each other by interchange at their equators. What I want you to weigh with your sense of logic is this. You can create heat by your own energy, your own desire to create. If Y0 you create heat through energy extended to you from God, can you logically say that your creation created itself? Science explains its claim by explaining that the universe was created eons ago by some unexplainable cataclysm which formed a tremendous ball of fire which is now expanding to form into smaller balls of fire. All of these are supposedly expanding into the cold of space. Such a happening is impossible, for there still remains the fact that the ball of fire had to be created by energy. Where did the energy come from to create itself? That is the unanswered question. If there is a God creator, why then God created the universe from the energy of omnipotence which is in him, and not in his creation? All the heat of all the universe is the effect produced 12 years God's concentrative thinking, and cold is its decentrative mate. Science can produce heat only by simultaneously producing cold. That principle is reversed by refrigeration to produce cold. You cannot produce cold on one side of the equator of the two without producing heat on the other side of it. They are the Father. Universal Law, Natural Science and Philosophy, page 2.43 I'm Mamato or Kamiarmum. Mr. Ikamano Mumlik. Man Mother Principle of the divided universe. A divided equilibrium must produce equal and opposite pairs simultaneously, then each must become the other sequentially. Heat expresses energy by expanding, but cold expresses an equal energy by contracting. The heat of suns radiates out into space as cold. It has become its own opposite, as all effects of motion in nature do. Then the cold of space generates the heat that is in the suns. Cold has also become its own opposite by reversing its outward radial direction to an inward radial direction. That is all the difference there is between contraction and expansion. This effect is like every other effect in nature. Sexed pairs interchange their conditions to find balance but rind it only to lose it. The heartbeat of the universe never stops. For that reason the interchange between opposite mates is eternally repetitive. Nothing in nature ever stops. It is always unfolding, always becoming. Y0 You are one unit of creation, a universal unit of it which cannot be separated from the whole. Therefore, Y0 You can never cease to be. Y0 You are forever unfolding, forever becoming. Y0 You are the energy of Y0:0.0. Moreover, Y0 You are the energy which created the entire universe. Do take this idea into your deep meditation and feel the exaltation of it, feel the mighty power of it. Heat and cold are sex mates. I want you to think more intensively upon this subject of energy expression and apply it to how it affects Y0 You in your universal law. Natural Science and Philosophy, page 244. Every thought and action degrees. In knowledge of it lies the secret of your own personal power. Degrees. Tremendous energy is expressed in the crushing force of ice caps and glaciers as well as flaming volcanoes or steam. But the expression of energy is not energy. Degrees. Cold Arctic and Antarctic currents move toward the equator to find balance by sex interchange with warm currents, and warm currents equally desire that interchange and flow toward the poles. Find it. Degrees. The energy expressed by cold currents exactly equals the energy expressed by the warm currents. Why say that heat is energy when cold expresses equal energy? Each are powerless without the other. Degrees. Moreover, each became what at 1,1. As because of the other. Degrees. Heat is radiation in reverse. Degrees. Cold is G_121: action in reverse. If each are thus powerless, 1,11 give one power which it does not possess. Heat radiates. Degrees. Its expansion lowers its potential, but cold aeravates and its contraction equally raises its potential. The second law of thermodynamics states that energy cannot run uphill, which means that it cannot increase its potential, but can only decrease it. Degrees. Gravitation increases potential equally with its decrease by radiation. Degrees. Gravitation and radiation are equal opposites. Degrees. Gravitation is centripetal. Degrees. It winds matter 12 into tiny compact solids. Radiation is centrifugal. Degrees. It unwinds solids into liquids, gases and ethers of space. Degrees. See Fig. Degrees. 25. Universal Law, Natural Science and Philosophy, page 245. Gravitation and radiation are father and mother which born the divided universe into formed bodies of ideas and disintegrate those bodies in sequential lives and deaths forever. Gravitation charges bodies with positive electricity. Radiation discharges bodies with negative electricity. Solids are formed by positive charge and space is formed by negative discharge. There is no such effect in nature as negative charge. The outward direction of radiation and the inward direction of gravitation is the motivating mechanism which keeps the universal heartbeat forever pumping as your heartbeat pumps while geared to it. This entire divided universe of motion is one huge cosmic electric compression expansion pump, and gravitation and radiation is its two-way moving piston. The piston is one, but it moves two ways to express its oneness. The energy which motivates the universal pump is neither heat, cold, compression, expansion, gravitation or radiation. For these are all effects of energy, but they are not energy. Nature demands that every effect of motion anywhere must return to the condition from which it started, and each condition must return through its equator to become its opposite, for all effects of motion are expressed in cycles. The more you comprehend this fact, the more you will understand the principle of reincarnation. When we reach that stage in these lessons, we will consider the two conditions of water as an example of how they interchange to become their own opposites through sex interchange. Degrees Universal Law, Natural Science and Philosophy, page 246. When the sun shines on the ocean, it evaporates. Heat expands it from the positive condition, which belongs to gravity, to the negative condition, which belongs to radiation. As water vapor, it can no longer remain on earth. Degrees it must rise. Degrees when it has found a balanced condition, it floats. It becomes a cloud floating in the unchanging direction of equal pressures. See Figure 16, page 175. A cold wind suddenly condenses it. It contracts again into alley volume and once more seeks the positive direction of gravity. Once more it has become its own opposite, which borne it as it falls radially toward the center of the earth. You can plainly see that heat cannot be 12.2 A unless cold is, for each one of the two express equal energy in opposite directions. Likewise, you could not say that life is energy, for a life borns death, and death expresses as much energy in borning life from earths as life expresses in giving death to earths. Let us summarize this cyclic effect to demonstrate the fact that every effect of motion which happens on one side of an equator must journey to the opposite side of that equator as its own opposite. Degrees it must then reverse its condition and return to the other side of the equator forever. 1. Nothing ever blots that necessity for motion out. Degrees there are no exceptions to it. Earths or suns disappear, but division into opposite conditions repeat themselves forever, each of which takes up its residence on opposite sides of a mutual equator for a period of time, then changes over to the other side. See Figure 24. Here is one cycle which demonstrates that law. Heat radiates. Degrees Universal Law, Natural Science and Philosophy, page 247. Radiation expands. Expansion cools. Cold generates. Degrees generation conmavn archiprotes contracts, and heat again radiates. This cycle demonstrates the very obvious fact of nature that each opposite of every pair in nature is born out of its opposite simultaneously, and sequentially becomes that other opposite from which it was born. No matter how many sets of words you may use in respect to other pairs of opposites, the law is the same for every pair of opposite halves of ideas in the universe. Motion itself is too resilient to be energy. Degrees motion expresses energy, but, again we say, the expression of energy is not energy, just as a photograph of a man is not the man, the poem is not the poet, nor the play the playwright. Degrees motion takes place only for the purpose of finding balance for a condition which is out of balance with its equilibrium. There is no energy in matter or motion. Degrees likewise there is no life, or light, or truth, or law in matter or motion. Degrees life is extended from the stillness of undivided conscious mind to manifest life by dividing it into life and death, but the expression of life as thus manifested is not life, it but symbolizes life. Degrees likewise, energy is extended from the stillness of the undivided light of mind through the thinking of mind. Degrees thinking is electric, and is expressed by motion, so thinking is not energy, for thinking is motion, where then is the universal energy. It is not in motion at all, but in the stillness from which motion springs, and that universal law, Natural Science and Philosophy, page 248. Stillness is in the magnetic light of universal consciousness. Within the universal conscious mind is desire for expressing the one whole idea, which is creation. Without that desire of mind there would be no electric thought universe of divided sex-conditioned pairs. Likewise Y0 your desire of mind is your energy to produce thought bodies in divided sex-conditioned pairs. 7 When you produce a child in your own image, it is through the desire of you and your _8 to interchange through each other to find balance in your mutual equator. The heat of suns, likewise, will not produce its planetary children without interchange with its cold mates on the other side of their mutual equator. Planets are born through interchange between hot suns and cold space degrees. Likewise all the heat of all the universe will not produce your child, nor your poem, symphony, house, book or any other creation of your desire. Why, then, call heat energy. Desire of mind is the universal motivating force. Desire of mind and the will of mind are 1 degrees. Without the desire to move you cannot move. If you so much as desire to lift your finger you cannot do so until you will it to move degrees. Try it degrees, see if it will move of itself without being told to do so by the desire of your will degrees. When you then do move it you have immediately established an equator for that action and have borrowed the power to move it from the other side of that equator. 12x Assuming an obligation to balance your borrowing law and equal exchange degrees. No action can take place in nature without dividing the universal law. Natural Science and Philosophy, page 249. Universal equilibrium by an equator to balance the action simultaneously with an equal reaction, then exchanging them, each for the other, sequentially. God will not allow you to unbalance His universe even to the weight of an electron. On the other hand, He will help you move the whole universe for your own benefit if you but obey His law of balanced interchange. There is no limit to what you may do with His help, but the slightest action taken against Him hurts you in the measure of your breach of the law of balance. I again quote God's divine message in reference to the teachings in this lesson. The heavens and the earths of my curved universe are father mother of my universe, each of each and each to the other one. Neither one can be save the other also be. Nor can one leave the other, saying, sit thou here while I journey to the far reaches degrees. Oh, can there be aught upon the earth without the fathering skies, nor in the skies without the motherhood of earth? Neither man, nor bird, nor reptile, nor fish, nor beast of wild jungle, neither tree nor flower, nor shrilly singing insect, neither tempest, wild tornado, nor gentle breeze of calm ocean, nor cloud, nor mist, nor dewdrop for flower petal, not one of these things can be born of earth alone unfathered by the heavens, nor can dash heaven alone born them without the motherhood of earth. Thus is my imagined electric universe born, dissolved and reborn, concentrated, decentrated and reconcentrated, integrated, disintegrated and reintegrated forever and forever in my imagined universal law. Natural Science and Philosophy, page 250. Universe of imagined time and space. And behold, each of a pairs of opposite expressions of me are reborn through me, the other one. Again I say, there is naught but rebirth in me. There is no death. Again I say, I, the light, am one. But me thinking is electric, and thought is two in every creating thing, two halves of one which never can be one. Always must they be two opposed ways from me and back again to me for reborning from the mere one after finding rest in me. From the Divine Iliad, Figure 23, Universal LPW, Natural Science and Philosophy, page 251. Universal Law, Natural Science and Philosophy, page 252, Figure 25, explaining how all bodies are both positive and negative. All masses of matter in the universe are doubly charged. The male is also female and the female also male, but one condition dominates each. When bodies breathe inward, they express fatherhood by generating heat. When they breathe outward, they radiate heat and thus express motherhood. The inbreathing charges the body positively, and the outbreathing discharges the body. This electric action and reaction, expressed in sequences, synchronizes with the universal heartbeat, which divides the universal equilibrium into life-death cycles of appearance and disappearance. Universal Law, Natural Science and Philosophy, page 253, explaining how the Father Mo'(r) extends to Father and Mother. All of the stars E and D nebulae of the heavens plainly manifest the simultaneous giving and re-giving of love as the one desire of the Father-Mother of creation. In this nebula, the outward thrust of radiation is the giving principle of motherhood. The motherhood principle of giving is seen in the two white luminous arms which extend centrifugally outward from the equators of suns. The inward pull of gravitation is the receiving principle of fatherhood. The fatherhood principle of re-giving is seen in the two black arms which reach inward centripetally to the poles of suns. This simultaneous interchange between the two opposite pressures winds light up spirally from space into hot suns and sequentially unwinds the hot suns into cold space. The black arms reaching inward from cold space generate matter into appearance, while the white arms reaching outward from hot suns degenerate matter into disappearance. Universal Law, Natural Science and Philosophy, page 254, The Law, radiating 4410/4 40 Matter Seek Sang 540_pan of gene_lower. Present round Schur zones, Figure 27, explaining simultaneous giving and re-giving. Desire to manifest the love principle of nature is manifested by the seeming division of the idea of love into its many pairs of opposite expressions. The electric action of giving extends radially outward from a center of rest in the universal light of mind. The reaction of re-giving is simultaneously expressed by the outward giving of motherhood meeting with the inward pressures of re-giving of fatherhood, which are returning in the opposite radial direction. The resistance to this two-way flow of opposed pressures winds all forms into spheres spirally, and likewise unwinds them. Universal Law, Natural Science and Philosophy, by Walter Russell, S.C. D. Lesson number 16. The Walter Russell Foundation, Swannanoa, Waynesboro, Virginia. Copyrighted 1951 by Walter and Lau Russell. Answers to students' questions. WHO want to know what to do about IT. Lesson No. 12 began with these words from the Divine Iliad: all questions are answerable in light, thou art light. Thou canst answer them. I repeat these words because you will gradually know their import as the lessons progress. You do not yet know their import, and one reason for my repetition is to take advantage of your growing understanding of your sonship with God, which the last lessons have unfolded, and add one more reinforcing thought. For this reason I will repeat the paragraph in other words, as follows: all questions are answerable you. You have all knowledge within the light of yourself. When you know this sufficiently to thoroughly believe it, you will become as a rock upon which you, yourself, will lean. This is a more direct way of making you feel that God's words were meant for you alone. What I want you to do is form the habit of thinking inwardly towards your center of consciousness instead of outwardly through 255 Universal Law, Natural Science and Philosophy, page 256. Your senses as mankind has been doing in the past. That is what I mean by saying you must know what to do with it, for the answer to all your problems lies within yourself. Anything which is wrong with you is due to an unbalance somewhere in your interchange between the two opposite conditions within which everyone must work. You alone can find that unbalance which is the cause of your problem. Your problem is an effect which underscore you have produced. The underscore or you work knowingly with God by thinking inwardly toward your God self, the more you will keep every decision in balance. As your actions always follow your decisions, they also will continually manifest the principle of the Divine Trinity. That is what I mean by knowing what to do with it, for when you go outside of yourself in either thinking outwardly or asking of others, you are admitting that you do not know what to do with it, and will never know what to do with it, so one equals. As you continue to deny God in you, that is why I have been telling you to never seek the solution to any personal, social or business problem outside of yourself by asking advice from anybody, or even anybody. The moment you do that, you complex your problem mightily. No one can take over your problems as their own. No one even cares to listen to them. There is something in human nature that makes one shun listening to other people's problems, and that is the way it should be. Try to recall when you, yourself, have done this, when something which seemed unpleasant, or unfortunate, even to illnesses. Universal Law, Natural Science and Philosophy, page 257, or operations, tempted you to ask advice from anyone in any such manner which inferred leaning upon them or casting your burden on them. If you will analyze your action, you will probably find that your motive was colored with a desire for sympathy for yourself, as well as suggesting a desire to another that you needed to have him decide upon actions which should be your decisions arrived at you in communion with God. To seek sympathy for yourself, or sympathize with yourself, is founded upon self-pity for a situation which you are thereby making a reality of, instead of conquering it yourself by your own decision and glorifying it in your own God-given omniscience. Such passings of your ch08ership of yourself to another self is the greatest possible factor in weakening, rather than strengthening yourself. A leader of men does not ask to be led. When you ask to be led, you are acknowledging your weakness. A genius creator in the arts goes to God for his inspiration. An unwise one who asks another might just as well stab his creation to its heart. Do not misunderstand me by thinking TM9, a lag to against consultation with another. Let me clarify my meaning in this respect. If something is wrong with your car, you are aware of it, and you decide to have it fixed. That is your decision. You are not a mechanic. You have not been informed regarding such techniques, and you have not acquired the skills nor equipment needed to fix it. Information, skills and techniques are not knowledge. You have what is required to fix your car: the knowledge of its universal law. Natural Science and Philosophy, page 258. Condition which makes you decide what to do about it, and that is your decision, not some friends or neighbors. Likewise, you must consult with doctors or tailors when you need their information, skills or techniques to mend your broken bones or make a suit of clothes. Such consultations all must have, for not anyone has all skills, all information and all techniques. The idea which I am accentuating is that you should never be a reflection in the mirror or of another. You should extend yourself to all other men, as all other men extend themselves to you. That which you decide to take on of other men's extensions is your decision. not theirs. You can take on jazz or Beethoven as you decide, or you can insulate yourself against them. But if you are a reflection in a mirror instead of being the mirror which reflects, or a sponge which absorbs instead of the rock which withstands all things alike, you are denying your inheritance from our Father Seven Mother, and becoming that which is being created instead, RSF being co-creator with our Father Mother of our mutually creating universe. Again I say that the answer to all problems and questions concerning any effect whatsoever lies in your knowledge of the principle of balance and its extension into the Divine Trinity. During the 48 lessons this principle of balance will be extended and exemplified. I have hardly touched the subject as yet, knowledge of the relation to mental balance in the extensions of your thinking, and to your physical balance in relation to the effects caused in your own body and in the thought bodies which universal law, natural science and philosophy page 259 you are forever creating will give you a power you have never yet dreamed of having. In the next lessons I will give you knowledge of the balanced relation of your body to the earth from which it is extended, which will amaze you, and should affect all world thinking and medical practice for its great benefit. Gradually you will take within yourself this new knowing, too. Replace old habits of relying upon your senses of observation which are so deceptive and lead you into such strange paths. Before I leave this subject to answer the questions, I want to call your attention to something which happens to cosmic thinkers, meaning those who think from their consciousness rather than sense from their brains, which may confuse you if you do not understand it. The following question prompted me to explain it now, for many really inspired thinkers are very much confused by it and misinterpret it to their injury rather than to their glorification. Question: ever since studying the Divine Iliad and your other writings I have had strange mental happenings such as I never knew before. Suddenly something I never knew before comes like a flash, and when I am compelled to write it down I am surprised, for I never knew such things before. I write them down with that wonderful feeling which must be the ecstasy you speak of. I am wondering if some voice is trying to speak through me. Please explain it. Is that what is meant by being occult? My writings are not automatic, for I know what I am writing. Answer: no, there is nothing occult about it, nor is there universal law, natural science and philosophy page 260 any other voice than your own which is God's trying to speak through you. What is happening is that you are beginning to think from the divinity of yourself which is from your consciousness. Knowledge comes to you in timeless flashes when you think inwardly toward the light of consciousness, rather than outwardly toward the senses. Inspiration comes that and great inspiration is always accompanied by the ecstasy of the God nature. The geniuses in all of the arts know that ecstasy and seek it constantly in order to interpret God's rhythms as they resound from the silence of our cosmic heartbeat. What you are doing, your meditation over God's words and the Divine Iliad is unfolding your own genius. All geniuses are cosmic thinkers. As this new thinking increases in its intensity you will find that quality which is known as intuition increasing in its intensity. Intuition is a cosmic quality which is unfolding in the human race. It is one way in which God speaks to man. It is a timeless and wordless communication of the universal mind to a universal mind in the unfolding of creation. You are a part of the unfolding of creation. Your destiny is an integral part of that unfolding. Intuition is mind unfolding desire of mind. Just as inspiration is a mind awareness of ideas, so is intuition a mind awareness of one's plan of action concerning the destiny of that idea. How often I have felt intuition telling me what to do or what not to do. It is as though God holds up his hand and says, "Do not do that, my son, oh do not be surprised." Therefore, when your inner thinking Universal Law 9, Natural Science and Philosophy page -26 leaders toward the light causes the light to respond to your desire to be guided. By the light of your knowing. Question. When we decentrate, should we visualize our desire mentally, or should we visualize this before or after decentrating? Answer. First, charge your whole being with your desire. Concentrate upon it as intensely as you can, then relax and forget it. The very reaction to concentrated desire is decentration. You may have hardly time to realize that you have decentrated. I have had many of my conceptions unfolded to me from the stillness of my consciousness almost as soon as I expressed the desire. In a timeless flash the concept stood before me in a mind-imagined thought body to which I afterward gave a material body over a period of years. Question. Why does it seem so extremely difficult to decentrate in the early mornings before rising, which is not the case later in the day? Answer. I am afraid you have confused the activity of your senses with the thinking which extends from your consciousness. In the early mornings before rising, one's brain is sluggish, sleepy, not yet electrically active. Consciousness is stilled with lack of desire for creative expression. Until you have extended your desire from your consciousness, it is at rest, for it is not your consciousness which decentrates but your thinking. I have another question which I will answer next, in which you will get a greater understanding as to what to do about it. Question. I still not clear as to decentration. If Universal Law, Natural Science and Philosophy page 262 decentration is the opposite of concentration, I cannot see how it could be the zero of stillness, for if concentration is the positive sex mate of decentration, the latter must belong to electricity and not to the magnetic light of zero stillness. Please explain. Answer. Yes, decentration does belong to electricity, but it is the unwinding of that which has been wound up to concentrate. If you just unwind enough to find balance in zero, you will have concentrated to zero from a concentrative condition, but if you continue to decentrate, you will still be active mentally, for its opposite sex mate will demand that you interchange to find balance. A continuity of that is what thinking is, but if you stop the interchange, when both are balanced, you will find the rest and the zero of the light of the universal equilibrium, from which you can gain the knowledge and impetus for another start in thinking. Have you not often heard a man say, when deeply confused, "Hold on for a minute and let me get my equilibrium"? That means that he is so far out of balance, or confusion of ideas, that he wishes a fresh start from zero. Another way I can simplify this idea is to imagine two children playing seesaw. That dual interchange exemplifies the thinking process. When they are sitting on the ends of their seesaw before starting to move, they are in the sexless condition of undivided balance. They are in the condition you are in if you stop concentrating or decentrating. The moment they move, they have divided their one balanced condition into two unbalanced conditions. Universal Law, Natural Science and Philosophy page .263. Apxmam. Animum and emdom of concentration and decentration, which need to interchange to restore balance. When one child is up high and the other down low, they are in uncomfortable opposed positions which they cannot long sustain. That is the sex-divided condition which arouses all the passions of all of Earth's creating things and the desire of all things to find balance and rest from such uncomfortable positions of separation of one half of itself from the other half. That zero of rest is in the middle of their board. That is the point of rest from which they are divided to express idea and motion. When the children reach that level they are momentarily in equilibrium, but they instantly lose it again. If they stopped there it would be like you're ceasing to think. Even though they do stop they are still extended from their centering source. They are still divided, though motionless. If they both drew together in the center they would be united with their source and could not move until they again desired to become divided. 2. Apply that to thinking in cosmic consciousness. First stop thinking, then withdraw your electric extensions into your centering consciousness. That causes a partial or complete forgetfulness of body accords A to the intensity of your ability to sever the electric extensions which divide you from your consciousness. The genius partially severs body sensation from spiritual consciousness degrees. The fully illumined cosmic conscious mystic completely severs sensation from consciousness degrees. Universal law, Natural Science and Philosophy, page 264. The more you meditate within the zero of your own consciousness, the more you will become enabled to sever sensation from consciousness degrees. On the other hand, you can overdo this, thus neglecting to intensify your thinking degrees. That is the mistake many of the Buddhists make. Degrees while trying to seek nirvana in cosmic consciousness, they lose it by depolarizing their power of thought, which also depolarizes their bodies degrees. Cessation of purposefulness depolarizes both body and mind, for thinking is polarization of mind, and action is polarization of body degrees. But this in another story which will come to you later on when I have sufficiently laid the foundations for its comprehension degrees. Question: if, during either concentration or decentration, one feels an extreme ecstatic state through the entire body, is this actually the ecstatic state mentioned in your lessons, or is it merely emotion? Answer: cosmic ecstasy is a mind condition, not a body one. It is the mind nature of God and the God in you degrees. You cannot feel T through your entire body as you say degrees. In fact, your body cannot feel it at all degrees. You mistake the exhilaration and joyfulness of the harmonious, rhythmic vibrations of vitality, good health and peace of mind coming from the purely mental state which shuts out bodily vibrations. When I am skating, or climbing mountains, I feel that bodily exhilaration which you refer to. But when I am meditating, or walking quietly in the forests, where I continually step in and out of my body, there is a constant alternation of that vital bodily feeling of intense joyousness which just as suddenly. Universal law, Natural Science and Philosophy, page 265 says mama comma ppnwpm pottermolsa pimspem ranfmimfts disappears and gives place to the stillness of mental ecstasy. A good example to illustrate my meaning is in the sound vibrations of the body which a heartstring creates to manifest the idea which lies within its silence. Let us say that the idea is D in the octave. That idea of D is in the silent stillness of the motionless string. When you pluck the string you live that idea. 1221/A sound body of wave vibrations. Those vibrations are felt by the senses of other bodies, but when their body disappears into the silence from which it sprang, the sound still exists as idea in the silent, vibrationless string. You can no longer hear or see its body, but you can know it and you can hear it in your thoughts as a thought body not yet given a material body. Question degrees: will you tell me if using the two hands and massage for healing will cause avoidance, or should only one hand at a time be used? Please explain. Answer degrees: no, it will not. Working with both hands multiplies your power immeasurably over working with one hand. The only way you could void your power is in not working with either hand, for your power is in your decision, not in the action. You extend your power by the action of manifesting your knowing through action. Your decision comes from your knowledge. That concept which you have arrived at mentally is the reality which you extend to your patient, but that reality will do him no good unless you do extend it through action, not through the inaction of wishful thinking. Universal Law, Natural Science and Philosophy, page 266. It is through polarity of body that we manifest our action by extending our balanced polarity to others whose polarity is unbalanced. Balanced interchange balances unbalanced polarity. By referring to figure 20 on page 232, you will see how the human body is vertically polarized by an equator which divides it into positive and negative halves. One lobe of your brain is on one half. How much thinking could you do with one lobe? Likewise, one arm is on one half. How much can you do when one arm cannot interchange with the other? Think of the rhythmic action of interchanging the swinging of your arms when you walk. If you tie one arm when you walk, you would vastly divide the benefit to your body by lessening your ability to balance it. By using one arm for your massage, you are virtually binding the other. This makes it more difficult for you to restore balance to your patient by extending yours to him. Balanced is helpful, but rhythmic balanced interchange is infinitely more helpful. Rhythmic expression will avoid and induce sleep, which is evidence of a restoration of balance, while unrhythmic movement would have the opposite effect. Question: what do you mean by the two lights of God's thinking? Answer: one of the two lights is the positive light of concentrative thinking. That light compresses light waves into solid forms. It is the red half of the octave spectrum which leads to white-hot incandescence. It is the light of universal fatherhood. The other of the two is the negative light of decentrative thinking. That light expands light waves into formless gases. It Universal Law, Natural Science and Philosophy, page 267, is the blue half of the octave spectrum which leads to the blackness of cold space. It is the light of universal motherhood. These are the two lights of the senses which you can see, and feel, and hear in sound waves when the two lights interchange. When they are balanced and cease interchanging, you can no longer sense them, for you are a vibratory body which can sense vibratory bodies only. You cannot sense the equilibrium which follows the voidance which results from cessation of motion. Question: I have a son who worries me very much. I fear he will be a failure in life, for he refused to go back to college the second year and will not go into my business with me as I had hoped he would. I just cannot keep him in the office 10 minutes. He seems to either dislike business or is very stupid about it. He is forever wasting his time hanging around airfields and making drawings of planes. He knows every make of plane and every personnel part of a plane, besides knowing all of it. Please tell me, what can I do about it? Answer: if you are a wise father, you will give him all of the encouragement in the world in allowing him freedom to live his own life as he chooses, instead of demanding that he live it as you choose. What you tell me leads me to believe that he is tremendously interested in flight engineering, and in nothing else. A man can achieve greatness only in the thing he is most interested in. He would either make a failure of your business if you obliged him to inherit it, or make his life a failure even though he succeeded in building it to high altitudes. I know a man who made $50 million because he Universal Law, Natural Science and Philosophy, page 268, was unavoidably drawn into his father's growing business, yet he was unhappy because his life was one long frustration. He had other desires and loathed business, yet forced himself to become master of Edo. He told me he would gladly give his entire fortune if he could have lived as he chose, even though that meant living in an attic room. The greatest men I have ever known revolted at the thought of going to college, and many of them were considered to be failures because of their low marks. Thomas Edison was one of these. I knew a man who tried to force his son to follow the sea and navigate great ships as he did. The son threw himself into the sea. I know another one who insisted that his son become a dentist. The son ran away. I know of many such cases. I trust you will let your boy have the opportunity of becoming a mastermind in the profession of his own choosing. Question. I find it difficult to keep up a sustained state of ecstasy. Why is this? Answer. So long as you are really inspired and working knowingly with God, that state of ecstasy will last for hours, or even days if the measure of your inspiration is great enough to demand a long time in fulfilling. A musician who is writing a long symphony, or a sculptor working on some inspired time-consuming conception, can remain much longer in that state because of his work, than one who is not creating something. Very often some very little thing, such as a call to the telephone, will end the possibility of continuing that ecstasy. Universal Law, Natural Science and Philosophy, page 269. Mc.com a equals cm calmum womb pamink 0 cm or also, op. Mos 5 mm for a long time. In such cases it is well to take up other little human occupations for a while, and before you realize it the ecstasy will return degrees. It may be that a return to the work itself will quickly lift you up into the high heavens again by the very contemplation of it. Always remember that the human you will constantly assert itself, for you are obliged to attend to the many calls of your body and your senses which cannot all be automatically performed. The more you make it a habit of your mind, however, and also make it a way of thinking, the more easily you slip in and out of it without even thought or effort. When you have arrived at that stage where why continually slip into and out of it with no thought or effort whatsoever, the more you will be enabled to sustain it when it is with you. Conclusion. Many of the questions we are receiving are very similar. When this happens I select one which is typical and answer that one to cover all. Also many questions are coming which are far ahead of where we now are, so if you have asked such a question do not be disappointed if it is not answered, until we get to where it is appropriate. It pleases us very much when we receive letters telling us to ignore questions asked because the writers have found the answer within themselves. That is just what these lessons are striving to accomplish, for when you actually accept the fact that all knowledge exists universally, which means within Y0 you will not only know what to do about any problem which confronts you, but universal law, natural science and philosophy page 270 you will find an indescribable happiness in your moment-to-moment communion with God. As you habitually turn to Him by thinking within your consciousness, when you thus find the kingdom of heaven you will also find that all things else shall be added unto you. Swannanoa, Waynesboro, Virginia. Beloved friends, addressing you all thus I am overwhelmed with such deep gratitude that it is hard to express in words all the love I know for you. Some of your hands we have clasped and held, and with others we have become insolubly bound through that invisible cosmic love that binds all who know and love God as themselves. But there will never be greater treasures for us in God's whole universe than the words in your letters that come daily. Never have such letters inspired us as those that are coming, telling of the daily unfolding awareness and understanding of God's divine laws and principles as set forth in the Home Study course. I ask you now if you will forgive me if I cannot personally answer all your letters immediately, for working with Doctor on the lessons in addition to an already very heavy schedule makes it physically impossible to write all the letters I so long to do. But please know that you are ever in my heart, and your dear love which you extend to us both, as one, is the spiritual food that sustains us through our many long hours of work in delivering God's great message. It is your very own letters that are proving this to us, for they are living proof of your growing understanding. And when you write how your friends, observing the glorious changes in your outward expression and way of life, want to know more about what you are studying, we know it is the true beginning of cosmic man and peace on earth. If space would permit, I would fill several pages this month with whole letters from you who are God's precious workers. Instead, I must be content to quote some brief passages which I know 271 will make you all as happy as they have you. Just multiply all you read by 100 or more, and you will get some small idea of the richness of love that flows out for God's message and comes back to you all in every word of the lessons each month. Degrees M0. Fo writes, "These thanks come from my heart for such a clear, scientific teaching. Degrees all my lifetime I've searched for the key, and now I've found it. Words are incapable of expressing the gratitude I feel. Oh, a wonderful couple who were here last summer and are now studying the home study course together and spreading God's message to others. Right. We have read or heard in lectures nothing comparable to it in spiritual value. Degrees each lesson is filled with wisdom and carries a promise of perfect unfoldment. Oh, the third group of lessons has arrived and we are deep in the contents. Degrees both do, and I feel your nearness as we read. Oh, it is like sitting in your rose garden and listening to you talking to us about the things we must know to help spread the message. Degrees. Oh, all who are taking the home study course that I'm in contact with are very enthusiastic and state that they are experiencing more peace of mind and harmony in their affairs than they have ever had before. Degrees, isn't that wonderful? Poe and E.W.C. And yet another lovely couple write, through your intimate home study course we can truly say we are working with, and in, the light. Oh, you have given us such wonderful new material that no one who studies the course need ever again seek outside aid. Oh, we have been amazed at what this new knowledge has done for you. Our daily desires are so simultaneously fulfilled that we are filled with ecstasy. Oh, from the sense world standpoint we count these lessons among our most valuable possessions, and yet we know that having found the light, these truths will be with us always. Degrees. We 272 relish the thought of always having you dear ones in our universe. Oh, may this short letter assure you that, through the printed lessons, you are teaching men how to find the light. We marvel at the simplicity of the scientific facts you have been able to give us, and know that, from the results already obtained, your writings will lead anyone to the light who seeks it according to the instructions contained therein. We are very busy people, but want you to know that we are urging everyone who is sincerely seeking the truth to take this course, and look forward to the day when we may give our full time to strengthening your activities. 0070p.f. and BD. The last sentence of this order and the following paragraph from another advanced and precious student brings to the foreground a great tale a doctor and I are unfolding in our consciousness, and about which we will tell you very soon. Degrees. We know it is destined to bring forth momentous things for you who are the seed group for bringing the message to mankind and heralding in the cosmic age. In the next month or so we will tell you more of this plan, and in the meantime we know you will continue to study every moment you can in preparation for the great work ahead. The future peace of the world will depend on man's known edge of God and the living of his laws. Degrees. We who know that every experience is good are fortunate indeed today in these days of seeming world chaos. Degrees. The chaos is man-made, and only knowing man can know peace, for sensing man shall ever experience the agony of a waltzing zero. This is the paragraph 1 mentioned, which came through the silence, to fit into our great plan. I feel that those of us who are taking the course have much in common, and I believe that if possible we should meet upon completion of the course and discuss ways and means of extending 273 our knowledge, balance, and inspiration, to the rest of the world. I believe there are many ways in which balance could be extended internationally through business, science, and the arts. HT0, how we want to shed the light all at once around the world, but plans must always be mature, and our plan is maturing, and you are all part of that plan. That is, all of you who know the desire to share God's work with us. So great is the light of this new knowledge that those who are unfolding it will soon be ready to illumine the world with the light of their own knowing. The next series of lessons continue to explain the source of all energy, and to demonstrate that your control of it lies in the measure of your desire and of your knowing. The energy of God's thinking mind creates thought bodies, which you might call mind-imagined bodies. Then that same energy creates material electric wave bodies in the image of the mind-imagined bodies. As that is all that God ever does, or that you ever do, it is of the utmost importance that the entire principle and process of it be made as clear to you as your alphabet. For that reason the next series will more fully explain the divided and undivided universe, or the principle of rest from which motion seemingly springs to seek rest, or the principle of silence from which sound vibrations spring to simulate a reality which is not in them. Although motion is the most evident thing in nature, God's universe is really static. It is really at rest. Motion is actually an illusion of the senses. It really does not exist. God's thought-imagined universe is pure imaginings, and materialized thought bodies are really illusion. Creation is but 274 a cosmic cinema which simulates ideas in motion which we know are not moving at all. When Dr. experienced his great illumination, he was made aware that the time had come when it would be vitally necessary to reveal the unreality of motion to those who had become ready to see beyond the illusion of the senses and to the source of the illusion, so that they could become its source. Degrees. He was, therefore, commanded to bring the cosmic age of omniscient knowers and omnipotent thinkers into being, to uplift the human race one stage higher in its unfolding. Degrees. The transcendent human of the coming cosmic age is he who has become fully aware of the illusion of matter and motion, and can thus unbind himself from the effects of matter and motion to dwell only in their source as co-creator of the illusion, knowing it for what it is. God's commands and the instructions of the delivery of the divine Iliad message or our ever-present thoughts, and now that your own glorious letters are coming back to us revealing such a depth of understanding, it is small wonder that our happiness knows no bounds as we read your daily letters. Degrees. To know that already you are able to answer so many previously baffling questions in the light of your own knowing, and are truly comprehending at last the underlying principles of the cosmos that are being unfolded to you through lessons you can study in the quietness of your own room. To know these things are our greatest daily blessings, for it is the fulfillment of God's message for all of us who live but to reveal cosmic love. Degrees. With love and gratitude for your companionship in this world, I am sincerely, Lau Russell. 275.